The Alien Enemies Act of 1798. In 1778, France had supported the U.S. in its fight for independence, but by the late 1790s, relations between the two nations had soured. The United States signed the Jay Treaty with Great Britain in 1794, which helped normalize trade relations with the British. To the French, this was seen as a betrayal. France, embroiled in its own revolution and fighting a bitter war with Britain, began seizing American merchant ships. President John Adams sent diplomats to France to resolve the disputes and prevent war. Instead of peace, the American diplomats were met with demands for bribes by French agents, codenamed X, Y, and Z. This would become known as the XYZ affair. The scandal enraged the American public, leading to the rallying cry, "Millions for defense, but not 1 cent for tribute." In response, Congress authorized defensive measures, and the U.S. prepared for an undeclared naval conflict. This would strain relations between the two nations. By 1798, the U.S. was locked in naval skirmishes with France. This conflict, known as the Quasi-War, primarily took place at sea, particularly in the Caribbean, where American merchant vessels were vulnerable to attack by French privateers. The U.S. feared French influence on American politics, particularly among recent immigrants. President John Adams, a Federalist, and his party saw foreign influence, especially from France, as a threat to national security. Federalists believed that recent immigrants, particularly those from France and Ireland, might sympathize with foreign powers or become subversive to the new republic. In 1798, amid these fears, Congress passed a series of laws known as the Alien and Sedition Acts. The Alien Enemies Act was one of the 4 laws passed in this package. The other 3 laws, the Alien Friends Act, the Sedition Act, and the Naturalization Act, focused on suppressing dissent and extending the time required for immigrants to become citizens. But the Alien Enemies Act was specifically designed to target foreign nationals. Its key provision was that it allowed the president to detain, imprison, or deport citizens of any enemy nation during wartime. In times of conflict, the president could act without a trial or due process, claiming that these foreign nationals might pose a threat to U.S. security. It was passed on July 6, 1798, under President John Adams. Adams didn't fully use these powers at the time, but the act gave the federal government significant authority over foreign nationals living in the U.S. whenever the country was at war with their homeland. The law reflected the growing fears of espionage and subversion. Federalists worried that foreign nationals, particularly French immigrants, might undermine the government from within. During this period, immigrants were often seen not just as newcomers, but as potential agents of foreign powers. Adams and his administration believed that protecting the young nation required tightening control over who could stay within its borders during times of national crisis. This is why the Alien Enemies Act granted such broad powers to the president in wartime. Not everyone agreed with the Alien Enemies Act or the broader Alien and Sedition Acts. The Democratic Republicans, led by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, fiercely opposed these laws. They saw the acts as unconstitutional, believing they gave the federal government too much power and violated civil liberties. In response, Jefferson and Madison drafted the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions, which argued that states had the right to nullify federal laws they considered unconstitutional. This was an early example of the tension between federal and state power. While the Alien Enemies Act was not fully used in 1798, it has had a lasting legacy. During both World War I and World War II, the act was invoked to detain and deport foreign nationals from enemy countries, including German and Japanese citizens living in the U.S. During World War II, President Franklin D. Roosevelt used the act to justify the internment of Japanese Americans and other enemy aliens. The Alien Enemies Act provided a legal framework for such actions. While some of the other Alien and Sedition Acts expired or were repealed, the Alien Enemies Act is still part of U.S. law today. The Alien Enemies Act of 1798 was passed during a time of national fear and political division, aimed at protecting the U.S. from foreign threats. It gave the president extraordinary power over foreign nationals in times of war, a power that remains on the books today. If you like this video, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.